My son mocked my job and humiliated me in front of his friends at his birthday party when I refused to buy him his dream car as a birthday gift. In his speech, he said, "I got the worst father ever who doesn't know how to love his only son. Such a shame." So I left calmly. But what happened next shocked everyone. I will tell you everything. First, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Eben Sherman from Texas. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. I never had much, but I always made sure my son had more than enough. My name's Robert, but only a few people ever call me that. Most just say Mr. Hill, or the guy who fixes buses. I've worked at the city depot for nearly 18 years now, long hours, cold hands, the kind of job where no one notices unless something breaks. But it paid the bills. It kept a roof over our heads. And it gave Jason, my only son, the kind of childhood I never had. Every night I came home smelling of grease and asphalt, but I still showed up to every parent-teacher meeting, every basketball game, every birthday party. I was the dad who stayed. Jason was my pride. God, I meant that. He had this big smile when he was little, a wild imagination, always asking questions like, "Dad, how do clouds work?" Or, "Can we build a rocket in the backyard?" I used to think we were close. Not just father and son, but a team. His mother left when he was 4, somewhere between a job offer in Arizona and a new man with softer hands. She barely called after that. I never told Jason the whole truth. I figured, let him have the illusion that she loved him and just couldn't be around. He deserved that much. I carried the rest alone. Now he's 17, and that boy I raised is somewhere in there, I think, buried under designer shoes, vape pens, and TikTok slang I don't understand. I used to joke that adolescence is like a virus. It gets better if you wait it out. But lately, it feels like it's not just a phase. It's something deeper. The way he talks to me, like I'm stupid, like I embarrass him just by breathing, it's sharp. And I try to shrug it off, tell myself he's still growing, but it cuts all the same. This year, he wanted a BMW for his birthday. Not a toy, not a model, a real, matte black BMW coupe he saw on Instagram. "All my friends have cars, Dad. You don't want me being the only loser taking the bus, do you?" He said it with this smirk, like he was daring me to argue. I didn't yell. I never do. I just said, "Son, that's a beautiful car, but it's not in our range. Maybe down the line." He rolled his eyes and walked out mid-sentence. The next day, he barely spoke to me. Not even a good morning. Still, I went ahead with the birthday party he wanted. Rented the community hall. Hired a DJ. Paid for a custom cake shaped like a sneaker he liked. $3.50 for sugar and food coloring. But I did it anyway. Ordered catering from that wings place he loved. I even paid extra to get lighting effects, which seemed ridiculous for a teenager's birthday, but I thought maybe, just maybe, it would make him happy. I thought maybe he'd see the effort. That even if I couldn't buy him a car, I could still give him something unforgettable. The night of the party, I arrived early to set up. I wore the blue polo he bought me last Christmas, thinking maybe he'd notice. Maybe he'd say something kind. Parents weren't really invited, but I was footing the bill, so I lingered in the background, refilling soda, straightening up chairs. Jason barely looked at me. When his friends arrived, he came alive, laughing, posing, hugging girls, cracking jokes. I stayed out of the way. About halfway through the night, the music stopped, and one of his friends handed him a mic. "Speech. Speech," they chanted. Jason grinned and climbed onto a chair. I leaned against the back wall, watching with a quiet smile. He started by thanking everyone for coming. Talked about how this year was crazy and how he was blessed to have dope people in his life. Then, his tone shifted. "But honestly," he said, pausing for dramatic effect, "not everything about today is perfect. I mean, I got the worst father ever who doesn't know how to love his only son. Such a shame, right?" There was laughter. A few gasps. I felt a strange heat rise up my neck. Did I mishear him? But no, he said it. Clearly. Directly. I stood frozen, like someone had unplugged me from the wall. Jason laughed, tossed the mic back to his friend, and jumped down. Music kicked back in. The crowd moved on. No one came to check on me. I didn't make a scene. I didn't even speak. I just walked out the side door, got in my truck, and drove home. The party was still going strong behind me, but I was done. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so tight they hurt. My stomach was hollow. I kept replaying the words in my head, wondering how we got here. After everything. After all I gave. How could he humiliate me like that? Back at home, I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing that blue polo. I didn't cry. Not then. But I stared at the floor for hours. Somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, I whispered out loud, "That boy doesn't see me." Not really. And for the first time in 17 years, I wondered if love, real love, sometimes means knowing when to let go. The next morning felt like a hangover, even though I hadn't touched a drop. I woke up at 6:17 a.m. Same as always, my body still locked into its weekday rhythm. For a minute, I forgot what happened the night before. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling the stiffness in my back, and I thought maybe I'd dreamed it all. But then it hit me. Those words, sharp as glass, slicing through the quiet of my kitchen. I got the worst father ever who doesn't know how to love his only son. No matter how many times I tried to shake it, it stayed lodged in me like a splinter under the skin. I couldn't decide what hurt more, his words or the fact that no one at that party said a damn thing to defend me. I got up, made coffee out of habit, and sat at the table. The silence in the house felt different that morning. It wasn't peaceful. It was loud, almost judgmental, like even the walls had heard him. I stared at my chipped coffee mug, the one Jason painted when he was 9 that said, #OneDad. Funny how a single moment can turn something sentimental into something you want to throw against the wall. But I didn't throw it. I just kept sipping, breathing, thinking. My mind raced in loops. Was this my fault? Had I given him too much? Or maybe not enough? I'd stretched every paycheck for him, taken on extra shifts, skipped vacations, wore the same 2 jackets every winter. And this was how he repaid me? I didn't even realize he'd come home. I heard the front door creak just after 9. His footsteps were light, careful, like a thief sneaking in. No greeting, no apology, just the shuffling of sneakers and the slam of his bedroom door. That was it. Not a damn word. I sat there, staring at that hallway, waiting for something, some kind of recognition that he knew he went too far. But nothing came. And that, right there, was the last straw. I stood up, walked into my bedroom, pulled open the top drawer, and grabbed the spare debit card I'd given him a year ago. He'd been using it freely: food, gas, random Amazon orders, but I never questioned it. I wanted him to feel supported, seen. But now I felt like a fool. I pulled up my banking app, clicked on Manage Cards, and with one press, shut it all off. Access denied. Just like that. I took a deep breath and sent him a text. "Your card is deactivated. Come talk to me if you want to understand why." It didn't take long. My phone lit up with a call from him. No greeting, no concern, just pure entitlement dripping from his voice. "What the hell, Dad? Are you serious right now? You really just shut off my card." His tone wasn't even surprised, just angry, like I'd stolen something from him. I stayed calm. "Yes. We'll talk when you're ready to be respectful." He scoffed. "Wow, you're being so dramatic. This is abuse. You can't just..." I hung up. I sat back down at the kitchen table and closed my eyes. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't fear. It wasn't even sadness anymore. It was clarity. Pure, clean clarity. I had been the punching bag for years, his emotional doormat, and it wasn't going to continue. Not anymore. By noon, the fallout had begun. My phone started buzzing with texts, most from numbers I didn't recognize. One message read, "Hey Mr. Hill, I think Jason's going through a rough time. Maybe don't be so hard on him." Another one, "You seriously cut him off? On his birthday?" I opened Instagram, curious, and saw his latest post, a black and white photo of him sitting on the curb, captioned, "Kicked out. No money. Happy 17th to me." Over 100 likes. Dozens of sympathetic comments. "Wow, your dad's a psycho. Come crash at my place, bro. Deadbeat energy FR." I scrolled and scrolled, each comment landing like a slap. My chest burned with a mixture of shame and fury. I hadn't kicked him out. I hadn't even raised my voice. But truth doesn't spread as fast as pity bait. Then came the call that twisted the knife. My younger brother, Derek. We hadn't spoken in months, mostly because he had a habit of siding with Jason on everything. Rob, man, what's going on? Jason just called me crying. You cut him off on his birthday. He humiliated me in front of 50 people, Derek. Yeah, but he's a teenager. They say dumb stuff. You're the adult here. I clenched my jaw. I've been the adult. Alone. For 17 years. Where were you when I was scraping rent together and patching Jason's jeans? There was a pause. Then, a tired sigh. Look, I get it. But this is family, man. You don't turn your back on your kid. I didn't respond. I just hung up. I couldn't stomach hearing one more person tell me I was wrong for drawing a line. That night, the house was still. Jason didn't come out of his room. I didn't knock. I made myself a sandwich, poured a glass of water, and turned on the old TV in the den. I didn't watch it, though. I just stared at the screen, the volume low, letting the glow wash over me while the weight of the day settled in. Somewhere around midnight, I walked past Jason's door and paused. I almost knocked. I almost asked if he was okay. But I didn't. Because this time, he had to come to me. And until then, I'd hold the line. The next few days felt like I was walking through water. Slow, heavy, each step sinking deeper than the last. I woke up each morning at the same time, made coffee, packed my lunch, and drove to the depot like nothing had changed. But everything had. The silence in the house became a second roommate. Jason barely left his room. When he did, it was always while I was gone. Just enough time to grab a snack or shower, then vanish again like a ghost. He never spoke. Not one word. I figured he was punishing me with distance, but he didn't realize I'd already mourned the closeness we used to have. That part of me, the father who bent over backward for scraps of affection, was done. By Wednesday, I'd removed him from my phone plan and changed the passwords on my streaming accounts. Not out of spite. Out of principle. If he wanted to be treated like an adult, he could start living like one. I left him a short note on the kitchen table. We can talk when you're ready to apologize. Until then, take care of yourself. I folded it neatly beside a grocery gift card and a roll of quarters for the laundromat. I wasn't cutting him off to be cruel. I was doing it because love without boundaries isn't love, it's submission. At work, I tried to keep my head down. I scrubbed bus seats, changed oil, ran diagnostics. Same as always. But the whispers started early. I knew it was only a matter of time before Jason's social media pity party made its way to the depot. That morning, a younger tech named Elijah caught up with me during break. Hey, Mr. Hill, everything okay at home? I raised an eyebrow. Define okay. He hesitated, scratching the back of his neck. Saw your kid's post. The one where he said he was homeless. Thought maybe something serious happened. I exhaled through my nose and took a sip of coffee. Nothing serious. Just consequences. Elijah nodded slowly but didn't say more. I appreciated that. Still, the damage had been done. My name was now a whisper in locker rooms and break rooms. Some people looked at me with sympathy, others with judgment. I didn't care much about strangers' opinions, but it gnawed at me that Jason knew exactly what he was doing. He knew how to spin it. He made me the villain, and himself the poor, misunderstood victim. And the world? It always has more time for victims. That afternoon, I got a call from the high school guidance counselor, Ms. Castillo. Mr. Hill, Jason's been skipping classes. We're a little concerned. Her voice was polite, but cautious, like she was expecting me to lash out or deny everything. I didn't. I just sighed. Thank you for letting me know, I said. I'm aware of the situation. She paused, then said gently, if there's anything we can do to support him, there is. I cut in. Hold him accountable. Silence. Then a quiet, understood. I hung up and sat in my truck for a long while before going home. That night, I found Jason had left the fridge open again. Milk on the counter, sticky spill on the floor, cabinet doors flung wide like a raccoon had ransacked the place. I cleaned it up without a word, then stood outside his door. My hand hovered, again, over the wood. I wanted to knock. I wanted to say something, to him, to me, to the goddamn wall, but nothing came out. Just air. Just that aching pressure behind my eyes that I refused to call tears. The next morning, my tires were slashed. All 4 of them. I found them in the driveway, flat, deflated, each one punctured straight through. There was no note, no apology. Just the slow leak of air and my rising fury. I called a tow truck, filed a report, and then waited. Jason finally emerged around 10, looking smug in his hoodie and AirPods. I stepped onto the porch, blocking his path. "You slashed my tires?" I asked, voice low. He pulled out one earbud. "What?" I didn't repeat it. I just stared. Jason smirked. "You gonna blame me for everything now, huh? You want me to respect you, Jason? Start by owning what you do." He shrugged. "Maybe if you'd bought me that car, you wouldn't be driving around on busted wheels." The words hung there, heavy. My fists curled at my sides, not out of rage, but restraint. He wanted a reaction. He wanted fire. But I wasn't going to give it to him. I took a deep breath. "You have until the end of the week to find somewhere else to stay." That wiped the smirk clean off his face. "You're kicking me out?" "I'm drawing a boundary," I said. "You've had every chance to talk like a man. You chose war instead." "You're unbelievable," he snapped. "You think this makes you a better father?" "No," I said quietly. "I think it makes me an honest one." He stormed back inside, slamming doors and shouting curses that echoed down the hall. I stood there for a long time, feeling the weight of years of birthdays, scraped knees, bedtime stories, forgotten lunches, teenage tantrums collapse in on themselves. That night, a former tenant of mine named Marlene called. She'd rented my basement suite a few years back after a messy divorce. Kind woman. Tough. She'd seen Jason grow up. I told her the short version of everything. "Robert," she said after I finished, "don't let anyone shame you for taking care of yourself. We do our best as parents, but sometimes they turn mean. That's not on you." I swallowed hard. "Feels like a failure." "It's not," she said. "It's survival." Her words stuck with me long after we hung up. And for the first time in a long time, I fell asleep not with guilt, but with resolve. The kind of peace that only comes after a hard, painful choice. The kind that doesn't feel good, but feels necessary. By Friday, the entire block knew. I can see it in the way neighbors paused just a second too long before waving. The way Mrs. Dunley from 2 doors down pretended not to see me while she dragged her trash bin to the curb, her mouth tight like she'd just sucked on a lemon. Word spread fast in a small neighborhood, especially when a teenager's version of events made for better gossip than the quiet truth of a tired father drawing the line. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't march around with my receipts or open my front door to accusations. I just went about my day like normal, even though nothing felt normal anymore. Jason was still in the house, but he was a shadow. I didn't speak to him, and he didn't try to speak to me. Every interaction between us had the static of a dead radio station, just noise, no connection. I started sleeping with my door locked. Not because I feared for my safety, but because I didn't want to wake up and find another boundary violated. Slashed tires were one thing. The next line, I feared, might be worse. He didn't apologize. He didn't show remorse. And that silence, that lack of even a sliver of shame, hit me harder than his birthday insult. The final blow came at the grocery store. I was in the frozen aisle grabbing a pack of discount chicken thighs when I heard someone call out, "Hey, Mr. Hill." I turned to see my cousin Anita, phone in hand. Smile tight. "Anita," I said, nodding, already knowing this wouldn't be a pleasant chat. She lowered her voice. "So Jason's staying with us now. He showed up yesterday." That stopped me. I stared at her for a long second, processing. "Didn't call me," I said. "Didn't text." She gave a little shrug. "Teenagers, you know? Anyway, he told us what happened. Said you kicked him out without notice. That he's been starving." I nearly laughed. "Starving?" "I left him food, a gift card, laundry quarters." Anita's eyes softened for just a second, but her tone didn't change. "He's 17, Rob. Still a kid. You don't just abandon your kid." I looked at her for a long, heavy moment. I didn't abandon him. I stopped funding his disrespect. She sighed. "Just think about it, okay?" I didn't answer. I just pushed my cart away. Behind me, I heard her call, "Don't let pride ruin your relationship." But it wasn't pride that kept me from chasing Jason down. It was pain. And maybe, for the first time, clarity. When I got home, I went straight to his room. Empty. Drawers yanked out, clothes gone, some posters torn off the wall. The window was cracked, like he'd rushed out and didn't care to pull it closed. I stood there a long while, taking in the silence that had suddenly turned from tense to final. Then I walked to the hall closet, pulled out a few trash bags, and started packing. I boxed up the sneakers I'd saved 3 paychecks to buy him. The hoodie from our trip to Chicago, the one he said he'd never wear but later posted selfies in. I cleared the shelves, the desk, the stray junk under the bed. Each item felt like a piece of me, small memories stitched into fabric and plastic. I didn't cry. I just moved slowly, deliberately, like someone tending to a grave. That evening, I got a message from a woman named Vanessa, a parent of one of Jason's classmates. "Hi, Mr. Hill. Just wanted you to know Jason was at my place last week for a party. He told some kids you hit him. I know that's not like you. Thought you should be aware." My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, numb. That lie. That wasn't just teenage rebellion. That was character assassination. A line crossed so completely, there was no path back. I called him. First ring. Second. Voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I just sat there, phone still in my hand, staring out the window into the dusk. The neighborhood was quiet. Lawns watered, porch lights blinking on. And I realized that I'd crossed over into a new chapter, one where I was no longer just a father. I was a man setting fire to old illusions. The next day, I dropped off Jason's bags at Anita's house. I didn't ring the bell. I just left them on the porch with a note. "Your belongings are here. When you're ready to speak honestly, with accountability, my door is open. Until then, take care." That night, Marlene, the old tenant, came by. She brought soup and sat with me on the porch, even though I hadn't asked for company. We didn't talk much, but after a while, she said, "You did right, you know." "I don't feel right," I said. "You're grieving," she replied. "But that doesn't mean you're wrong." We sat there until the stars came out, the porch light flickering overhead, the sound of cicadas humming in the background like a forgotten song. I felt hollow, but somehow less ashamed. Maybe that's what healing starts like. Not with joy, but with quiet. With space. With the decision not to chase someone who's running from the truth. It had been nearly 2 weeks since I'd heard my son's voice. 2 weeks of silence, of secondhand rumors and distant updates from people who shouldn't have known more about Jason's whereabouts than I did. Anita texted me once to say he was settling in. She didn't offer details, and I didn't ask. Part of me felt like if I pushed, if I cracked the door open even a little, I'd fall right back into that old pattern of giving and giving, just to be mocked, dismissed, ignored. And so I stayed still, not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much to keep being a target. Still, something in me refused to rest. I felt it in the weight behind my eyes every night before bed, in the way I found myself checking my phone, hoping for a message that wouldn't come. I'd never been the kind of man who liked conflict. I preferred the quiet, fixing things with my hands, listening rather than speaking. But now the silence felt less like peace and more like punishment. I wanted closure, and I knew I wouldn't get it from waiting. It was a Saturday morning when I made the decision to confront him, not in anger, not to provoke, but because I needed to reclaim my voice. I'd found out through a mutual friend that Jason was working a shift at a campus cafe near his new place. I told myself I wouldn't cause a scene. I just wanted to speak, face to face. No texts, no rumors, no middlemen. I parked across the street and walked in around 10:15. The place was half full, students on laptops, couples sipping overpriced lattes. And there he was, behind the counter, apron wrinkled, hair messy, eyes heavy. He looked older, not in a grown-up way, in a worn-down way. I stood in line like any other customer. When it was my turn, he looked up and froze. "Dad?" he said, his voice low, uncertain. I didn't flinch. "Jason." He looked over his shoulder, then leaned slightly forward. "What are you doing here?" "Talking to you," I said. "Or trying to." He hesitated, glancing at his coworker, then muttered, "I'm on shift. I won't take long." We stepped outside. The morning was crisp, the kind of weather that stings your skin just enough to remind you you're alive. He crossed his arms. I kept mine at my sides. "I heard what you said," I began. "About me hitting you." He looked away. I was upset. "That's not an answer." He stayed quiet. "You can be mad at me, Jason. You can hate me if you need to. But lies? That's a line you don't cross." He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "You made me feel like nothing, Dad. You embarrassed me." I blinked. "I embarrassed you?" "At your birthday party, you called me the worst father in front of a room full of people. I paid for that party, Jason. I paid for the food you ate, The clothes on your back, the roof over your head. And you spit in my face for what? A car. He clenched his jaw. You don't get it. Then explain it to me, I said. Right here. Right now. He shook his head. All my friends, they don't have to ask for stuff. Their parents just do. They show up with cars, with checks, with no questions. And me? I get told to wait, to understand, to be grateful. I'm tired of feeling less than. I stared at him, something inside me cracking. Not anger, not pity, just a quiet ache that words couldn't fully touch. You think those things are love? I asked. You think a car means you matter? Jason, I showed you love every day. Every time I came home dead tired and still cooked dinner. Every time I said no to myself so I could say yes to you. Every birthday I paid for, every jacket I mended, every dollar I didn't spend on me, that was love. But you only saw the surface. And when I didn't give you what you wanted, you tried to break me. He swallowed hard. His eyes shimmered, but he didn't look at me. I never asked you to be perfect, I said. But I sure as hell didn't raise you to be cruel. That hit him. I saw it. His shoulders slumped. His lip trembled just slightly. I'm sorry, he muttered. It wasn't much, but it was something. I nodded. I don't need perfect words, but I need honesty. And I need respect. He looked at me then, really looked. I didn't know how angry I was until that night. I felt like you were holding me back on purpose, like you didn't want me to succeed. I let out a tired breath. Son, I want you to have everything, but not at the cost of who you become. He nodded slowly. Then, almost under his breath, I didn't think you'd really cut me off. I didn't want to. But sometimes, boundaries are the lesson. We stood there in the cold, the space between us finally quiet in a way that felt real, not forced, not tense. Real. I'm not ready to come back, he said. I'm not asking you to, I replied. I'm just glad you heard me. He nodded. Can we talk again? Sometime. Whenever you're ready. I walked back to my truck with a strange heaviness in my chest. Not pain. Not joy. Just something thick and hard-earned. Like a truth I'd been carrying for too long finally set down. That night, I wrote him a letter. I didn't send it. I didn't need to. It was more for me than him. I poured everything into those pages. My fears, my failures, my hopes. I ended it with one sentence. I gave you everything, but forgot to teach you the value of anything. And then I folded it, placed it in a drawer, and went to bed. Weeks passed. The days slipped by in a way I barely noticed. Quiet, predictable, uneventful. Jason didn't move back in. He didn't ask to. I didn't offer. We exchanged a few texts, nothing too deep, questions about mail, his W-2, whether I still had his phone charger. But there was no emotional breakthrough, no swelling music moment, just small signals, a slow thaw. I think we both understood that whatever came next wouldn't be a return to how things were. Too much had been said. Too much damage had been done. And in some strange, painful way, maybe that was the point. I started sleeping better. Not all at once. At first it was strange, like the quiet was too thick, too complete. But soon, the stillness became comforting. I no longer checked my phone at midnight, hoping for a sorry that never came. I no longer waited for slammed doors or eye rolls or the sharp sting of entitlement. The air in the house changed. It smelled like something new, like peace, like dignity. One evening, I was fixing the porch light when my neighbor, Mr. Green, strolled by with his dog. He paused at the gate, leaned his elbows on the fence, and said, "Heard your boy's got a job now." That true? I nodded. Barista at the campus cafe. He grinned. Yes, you finally scared him straight, huh? I didn't smile back. It wasn't about scaring him. It was about stepping back so he could see himself clearly. Mr. Green gave me a thoughtful look. Still, must be tough. I shrugged. It was necessary. That's the thing people don't tell you about setting boundaries. It's not empowering at first. It's terrifying. Lonely. You question yourself every hour. But eventually, you realize something. Respecting yourself doesn't mean you stop loving the other person. It means you start loving yourself too. Jason came by once to pick up the rest of his things. He rang the doorbell like a stranger. When I opened the door, he had his head down, his hoodie up, that same worn look in his eyes. I helped him carry a few boxes out to his friend's trunk. We didn't say much. But right before he left, He looked at me and said, "Thanks for everything." Even when I didn't say it. I nodded. "Take care of yourself." He paused, then added, "I'm trying." That was enough. More than I expected. Less than I deserved. But it was something honest. In these days, I'll take honest over grand gestures every time. I got back into my routine. Work, groceries, the occasional movie on Friday nights. Marlene dropped by now and then with leftovers or gossip from her new rental complex. We talk on the porch, sometimes sit in silence. I never told her how much those visits helped, how much they made me feel human again. Like someone worth showing up for. One afternoon, I found myself driving past the high school. I hadn't been there since Jason's junior year parent-teacher conference. I parked and sat there for a minute, watching kids pour out in waves. Backpacks swinging, voices rising in that chaotic harmony unique to teenagers. I thought about all the times I'd waited in this very spot, tapping my fingers on the steering wheel, waiting for my son to emerge. Back then, I thought being a good father meant never saying no, never letting him fall, never letting him hurt. But now, I knew better. Letting him fall wasn't cruelty, it was trust. Trust that he'd get back up, that he'd learn, that he'd grow. And maybe he still had a long road ahead. Maybe we both did, but we were walking it separately now, and somehow that felt right. That night, I went through an old photo box. Jason as a baby, smiling with mashed peas on his face. Jason on his first bike, legs too short, helmet too big. Jason at his 8th grade graduation, arms crossed, trying to look cool. I smiled, then tucked the photos away, not out of pain, but reverence. Those memories were sacred, but they were also complete. The boy in those pictures was gone. A man was emerging now, and I had to let him do it without holding his hand. Before bed, I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my journal. I'd been writing more lately, not for anyone else, just for me. That night, I wrote, "You can love someone and still walk away. You can grieve someone who's still alive. And sometimes, the best way to show love is to say, no more." I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and went to bed. If you've ever had to set a boundary with someone you love, especially a child, you know how heavy that decision can feel. But sometimes the bravest kind of love is the one that says enough. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to choose self-respect over family approval? Share your experience in the comments. And if this story resonated, don't forget to subscribe for more deeply human stories about love, pain, and the power of letting go. See you soon in the next one.